Hello and welcome to this week's live stream on the 4 pillars of $1 million business. Everyone will have different opinions, but the pillars are basically the anchors that keep the energy solid in your business, keep the foundation fortified. Many of us, including myself, have built a business using duct tape, and I'm giving this information to you today so you can take a look at what's pretty optimized. Maybe you want to tweak it, and then what may need to shift in order to create your $1 million business. And the reason I'm sharing this today is because I'm committed to creating another 20 millionaires this year in their business. That means that, and it's not that it's not possible if you're not making 6 figures a year, but this is really more a conversation with 6-figure earners and what you are going to need to shift to get to 7 figures. And for those of you that are not at 6-figure years yet, this will give you an idea of what you need to be requiring of yourself in order to get to the next level. Because anytime we grow, it means that we have to be willing to require more of ourselves. Maybe require being a more impeccable steward of our time, our money, our energy, learning how to delegate, even though we can do it on our own, and all the things. But for now, we're going to focus on the 4 pillars of $1 million business. If you're new to my world, just drop a honk in the comments. I'll come back and officially welcome you. If you're watching the replay, let me know that as well. If you're new to this space, my name is Jennifer Longmore. I am a founder of the #1 Akashic Record training school in the world, and I am an 8-figure serial entrepreneur and private investor and many other things, of course. Those are not the entirety of our identities. The reason I share this is because I have to look back and go, okay, well, where was I when I made my first 6-figure year? What shifted within me to get to multi-6 figures? What shifted in me to get to 7 figures, multi-7, 8 figures? And all of it has, of course, as I mentioned, been on the other side of what I've been willing to require of myself. So much of creating this is really based on who we be, right? And it's business is such a portal for growth. So when I see another woman that's making 7 figures or higher, I tip my hat to them. I may not be friends with them. I don't need to be friends with everyone. I may not even get along with them, but I still have respect for them. And I can speak honestly for anyone that is 7 figures and higher, that's just kind of the way we operate. You may have seen a meme that I posted in the Quantum Growth Collective yesterday. Was basically like 7-figure earners, just they're not even aware of who's jealous of them, who's offended by them, who's competing with them. They might feel it vibrationally at times. They might feel people pulling on their energy, but as a rule, they're not aware of it because they're not even vibrating in that. They're vibrating in their vision, and their vision holds them up at a certain level, right? It holds them in the penthouse, basically. So they have the 360 viewpoint. They're just not aware of that stuff, nor would they waste their energy, their valuable time, money, energy, and attention on people that instead of being willing to require more of themselves and rising to, are instead miffed that, someone else has what they want to have and they're not willing to be that version of themselves. So let's dive in. We're going to go over what is required, and then I have an invitation for you at the end, something really fun for you. Actually, a few fun things. So the first thing that any $1 million business needs is systems. That might seem obvious, and it also may sound restrictive. A lot of people think that systems are restrictive, but systems actually give us more freedom. Mainly because you don't have to constantly try to remember and use up so much mental energy trying to remember how do we do these things when we run a challenge, or when we run a webinar, when we run a summit, or when we're uploading a new podcast episode. What are we doing again? We remember that stuff. There's operations that are created for each sort of marketing division in your company. So you're going to have marketing systems. You're going to have operations. What happens when someone emails us about this? How do we respond? All the things, right? So systems are really important, but there's also systems for client attraction. What are you doing for client attraction? How are you systemizing it so that your energy can be spent holding the vision and expanding the vision? The CEO of a 7-figure company is focused primarily on holding the vision of the company and delegating it to appropriate people that are going to institute it, and then in being the face of the company. and in building relationships. That's kind of the three main tasks of a CEO. And all of the other stuff can be delegated. So in that, when things aren't systematized, it chips away at energy. It creates micro leaks. And then the more we're plugging leaks, we're managing micro leaks. And you can't be a manager and a CEO at the same time, right? So if you're finding yourself managing time, managing people, managing your things, managing, repeatable things that should be in an operations manual, then that is your cue to go, okay, I need to take a look at this. Even with client attraction, there's also client retention. We have client retention systems. We love to celebrate our clients when they have big wins. They never know what's coming, but we always buy them a pretty significant gift. Especially, like, I remember, I think it was, when my client left her 50K-ish a year job, public service job, and now she's making 50K months consistently. You can bet that when she got up there, we gave her, and not that, we need to worry about the price of it or whatever, but we gave her a substantial gift to celebrate her and give her a high five, because so often we're not savoring that kind of stuff. Now, we do it to genuinely celebrate, but that kind of stuff goes a long way. And I can say that as a client who's on the receiving end of that kind of thing, right? It's astounding to me, and this is my bias, so I'm just letting you know that this is my bias. It's kind of astounding to me how many high-level coaches out there don't even have like a welcome, like a little tiny welcome gift for their clients. That kind of stuff goes a long way, right? It's all about how you're receiving people into your spaces. So retention involves what systems of appreciation, client appreciation, and gratitude do you have in place that makes people feel welcome and makes people want to stick around. And from a cost perspective, it's a lot less costly to, in fact, there's really no cost to constantly re-enrolling clients who are happy and who also want to tell other people, versus constantly acquiring new clients. It's quite costly. And if you don't know your cost per lead, which you will need to know that if you want to be $1 million business, you'll start to really be able to do the math and realize that having systems in place, particularly around client attraction and client retention, will be really, really important. So there's more to say about that, but I'm giving you sort of the 4 pillars, right? So you can take a look at where you want to tweak things for yourself, if anywhere, to really optimize and make things a lot easier for you. A solid foundation is a lot easier to leap from than if you're trying to leap in a bouncy castle. You can leap for sure, but think about how tired your legs are going to get, right? Because it's wobbly. You can only go so high because it has a roof, all the things. So the second thing that you're going to need to do in your $1 million business is positioning. It's really authority building at this point, especially for a service-based business. So where are you being seen? Who are you networking with? Who is in your circle of your power proximity? Do you have books? Do you have a podcast? Do you have a viral YouTube channel? Like, what is the outer thing that you've got going on that really builds you as an authority in your industry? So in my case, I have my podcast. Actually, I have 2 podcasts, but one I'm pressing pause on for now. That's the 7-Figure Club podcast. And I'm still just doing the Great Awakening podcast. I don't mean just, right? And I've written 10 books, and I'm a guest on various summits and podcasts that make sense for me to be on, that look like I should be there, right? And so we need to look at how are we positioning ourselves as the only option when it comes to marketing and so on. This can be a little bit of a niggly for people. It's already enough for people to feel like they're telling people they're an expert. And nobody's going to tell us we're an expert. We have to own it and embody it. And then the next leg up is authority. And we, A, can have some nigglies around the word authority, but B, we can feel like we're not being humble or any other societal programs. And it's not about that. It's actually of high service to your clients to really be willing to model that energy of leadership, even though you're going to have some weird stuff happen. You're going to have some weird fangirl kind of energy and love bombing and jealousy and backbiting and various things. It's a very, very small percentage, by the way. But we tend to amplify that and think that 99% of our experience in owning our authority is going to be that. And in fact, it's probably like 0.0001%. It's so minimal. And yes, it can be jarring when it happens because we want to feel like we're having a big love fest in our business all the time. So my question to you is, are you willing to be an authority? Are you willing to grow and evolve and expand and really be seen and really be in the spotlight, knowing all of the things that it comes with, and knowing that 99.99% of the time, it's all great things? Would you be willing to receive all of that, knowing that there's going to be a smidge of energy that comes at you that you would rather not have to deal with? And in fact, when you're a 7-figure entrepreneur, you typically have a gatekeeper by that point, right? Someone that buffers you from that kind of thing, someone that is on top of any weird stuff that happens online, someone that checks your inboxes, someone that's checking comments on your YouTube channel or various things like that. And so is that possible for you? Can you allow yourself to do that and know that you're fortified in doing that, and know that you wouldn't be called to that? The reason why we're able to do so well in the Akashic Record Training School, for example, is because I own my authority around that, as do all the other teachers and consultants that have been certified. We're not trying to say that other people are bad because we say we've got an amazing system, right? How could people buy from us if I'm like, hey, why don't you come and try my mediocre Akashic Record Training School? Part with your hard-earned money and come and take this mediocre training, right? Nobody's going to sign up for that. But if it's the #1 training school in the world, they're going to be more compelled. It doesn't mean that they're going to resonate with it. And if they don't, there are other schools out there for sure. But there has to be, people want to buy from others that are holding a certain energy of confidence in their expertise. And when our wisdom's embodied, we don't even really have to do much. It just sort of exudes from our pores, so to speak, right? So with that in mind, as I mentioned, you're going to want to have gatekeepers, and that feeds into the 4th pillar, which is support. So systems, of course, support the business. That's an intangible thing. Your team members support you. And so are you delegating, right? Just because you can change the light bulb doesn't mean you have to be the one that does it. It doesn't mean you're better than people. It just means that if you're not going to pay someone $500 an hour to do that, then you probably shouldn't be doing that, because again, your job is to be the face of the company, to be building relationships with other high-level entrepreneurs and holding the vision and making sure it's being implemented so that you can keep expanding the vision to be bigger and bigger and bigger to help more and more people. So on our team, I like to keep a pretty lean team, and not all businesses are the same. There's a lot of 7-figure businesses I've seen, especially in the coaching industry, that have a gazillion associate coaches and so on. Their profit margins are really low because a huge part of their profits go to paying other people. And there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, they should be paid. They are delivering service, right? But I've seen many times where people go into debt, and in some cases have had to claim bankruptcy because the business model and the profit margins couldn't sustain the profitability of the company. And in my opinion, this is just me, and I'm not saying this is for other people because everyone has a different model that resonates. For me, I don't have an interest in managing people, managing my clients, so to speak. I'm not interested in managing how my stuff is delivered. So instead, I scale my support in other ways. So I have a COO, and that person manages my stuff being managed, right? So I no longer manage people managing my stuff, because then I'm just double dipping, right? And it gets super frustrating. It actually is a huge waste of energy. It's very inefficient, and it prevents growth, because if you're meant to be the CEO, you're not meant to be the manager. So the manager doesn't hire and fire. The manager doesn't make sure that little I's and T's are dotted, right? They trust that the person in that role to do that stuff is really doing it. So that requires some discernment, of course, and knowing how to interview and so on. This is where a mentor can come in real handy to help you identify what is someone that's really performing well and who is someone that's not. Mentorship, being a part of that support as well in general, like we are our worst cheerleaders. And we don't always see our blind spots that are keeping us from growing. And we don't always see the low-hanging fruit. We definitely don't celebrate as often as we could and should when we're winning, so to speak. And when we hire a mentor, we are calibrating to what's possible. We are choosing someone ideally that is where we want to be, and we know that there's a secret sauce, right? An internal and an external secret sauce that they're embodying to create that. In some cases, you might hire someone that has a real specialty. Let's say you want to create a membership site, and you could spend all kinds of time, money, and energy figuring out how to create a successful mentorship or a membership site. Or you could hire someone that's the best of the best in their industry. And yes, that's an investment, but it's a massive shortcut. That's the ideal if you're hiring the right mentors, right? To give you the shortcuts that you need to create what you're wanting to create and create speed, right? And because a seven-figure earner is aware that money can constantly be replenished. They know that they can send out one email and make $100,000, for example. They're not worried if it costs them, I shouldn't even say cost, if they need to invest $10,000, for example, to hire someone for a VIP day to map out their whole like membership strategy, for example, right? So, and additionally, then that means that we have to be serious about it because we want to make sure that we're really leveraging some things. The other type of support would be personal support, like who is on your, I'll call it your calibration team, who helps you be optimized in your day-to-day life, because it is your vibe that's going to be attracting a lot of things, who you be in the world and how vital you are and how energized you are. So for me, I have a house manager and I have my regular support team. I have 2 different osteopaths that I work with. I have a naturopath that I work with and a homeopath. I'm trying to think of what, and a personal trainer. I'm sure there's other people in there. So I mentioned that. And we have the house manager takes care of a good chunk of the meals. And then we have someone else that will do some of that more personal shopping kind of thing, right? Yes, I can do all of those things, as can my husband and really anyone else in my life. But it's really my time that I'm trying to maximize, right? And sometimes that time is needed to rest. Sometimes that time is needed to be set aside to do things like this with you. Sometimes it's meant to spend time with my family so I can really focus on what matters and making sure that I'm building my business around my life, not the other way around, because it was the opposite for a long period of time. But I make sure anyways that I have team support. And this will be true for any 7-figure earner, some form of mentorship. In fact, most 7-figure earners I know and 8-figure earners will have more of a strategist on board. It could be a marketing strategist. It could be some sort of business coach that's where they want to be, for example. And then they usually have some sort of mindset or energy worker on hand. So there's usually 2 key mentorship kind of things that people have on hand. And then, as I mentioned, personal support. So those are 3 of the $4 million pillars that you're going to need for your company. The 4th one is having a $1 million mindset. This is huge. So to give you an example, and we get emails like this a lot, and I share this because I know this isn't uncommon. So someone has been on my list. I only know this because my team showed me the email, and they have opted into over 30 free things that I've offered over the last year. That's how much I've poured into people. And so she emailed the other day and asked me, or she said, it's not fair. It's not fair that I want to work with you. I can't get ahead unless I work with you. And you're not taking people who haven't made 6 figures yet. That's not fair. I've worked with all kinds of other coaches. I'm not getting results. How come you won't work with me? It's kind of the gist. And we can see that from time to time with people. And well, here's why. Here's why we're not going to be working with people like that. Because if you believe that someone outside of you is responsible for getting you results, then that's why you will never even make 6 figures, let alone get to 7 figures, right? And the second thing is nobody's entitled to our energy, right? And I know this prevents a lot of people from growing, so this is why I'm saying this. We have a fear of leaving people behind. I haven't left anyone behind. She can see me, obviously. I'm in my penthouse. I'm not preventing her from rising to the penthouse. She is. There's a perfectly, there's an elevator in perfect working condition that she can hop on and join me when she's ready. She's not ready. So she's essentially inviting me to come down to the main floor with her and have a big discussion in the lobby, convincing her to rise to the penthouse, which is the whole reason she came to me in the first place. I want to rise to the penthouse. So no amount of me convincing her is going to help her rise. She's going to have to choose that. But as long as she believes that I'm preventing her from growing because I won't work with her, which, by the way, I've never had a conversation with her. So that's a very presumptions, right? On top of that, she says she's worked with a ton of other coaches and has never got any results. Well, we know that type of person, right? It doesn't matter whether it's, a personal trainer hearing these kind of stories. I've worked with 10 trainers, I never get results, or relationship coaches or whatever. That is the sign of someone that's fully abdicating personal responsibility. That's just not even an option for a 7-figure earner. They're so willing to require things of themselves. They're so willing to embody a growth mindset that they would never have the audacity and the entitlement of thinking anyone owed them anything, right? Nobody's preventing her from rising except for her. And this is going to be the journey that she's on until she realizes, right, that she's the one that's stopping that. The $1 million earner doesn't take the elevator down. They just don't. Why would they? They're actually less available to other people that are being inspired by them being in the penthouse. If I leave the penthouse, then I disappear. Nobody can find me. I'm not shining a light as a lighthouse if I'm down on the main floor, right? I need to be up in the penthouse to be shining the light brightly. As I mentioned, we need to be willing to require more of ourselves. Anytime I've stagnated, if I'm really honest with myself, and it's not always easy, it's because I haven't been able to, or haven't been willing to require more of myself. The mindset, the $1 million mindset, makes sure that we're not checking emails constantly. We're definitely not consuming on social media. We're creating, and we're definitely not living in the comment section of social media, right? Fighting with people, getting engaged in other people's drama, getting engaged in those posts that are bashing other coaches and wanting to do the, yeah, well, here's my story and here's how I got screwed. Nowhere in the history of $1 million earner are you going to see that. I would be astounded if someone was behaving that way, because that's just not where energy goes. And something shifts along the way when you get to $1 million, where you realize that none of that other stuff matters. You just stay in your own lane and you focus on what you're doing. You're aware that you have competition, but you're not feeling threatened by them. If anything, you're grateful, because not everyone's going to resonate with you. And you can be grateful that there's a home for people that need the service, but maybe don't resonate with you or your company. The other main shift to have $1 million mindset is to separate income from effort. And that's a big deal, because so many people are used to selling their time. They're used to constantly being on this marketing machine. The other way that shows up is literally starting every month going, okay, what do I have to market this month to make this amount of money? That's not how $1 million earner thinks. They already have all that stuff mapped out. They keep a pulse on what's coming through the business and see if there's anything that needs to be tweaked. But it's usually because they're putting that on their team to come back with recommendations instead of doing all the heavy lifting. So you can see that the things that get you to mid 6 figures aren't going to be the things that get you to 7 figures. Because on some level, you're way more involved. You're basically a manager in a lot of ways getting to mid 6 figures, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's what got you there. Well, what'll happen is people will keep doing the same things, thinking, well, if I just do more of this, if this is what I did to get here, if I just do more of this, it's going to get me to 7 figures. It's not. It's actually more about pulling back. It's about simplifying through systems, simplifying what you're offering, so that your team isn't overwhelmed and dropping all kinds of balls, and so that your community actually knows how you can help them. It's about being willing to be more seen. It's about being willing to be more supported, even though you can do it on your own. Yes, of course. You're a leader, right? That's why you have $1 million business. So leaders tend to want to lead and they want to take care of things, right? And it's a lot of times faster for us to take care of things, but we still learn to be supported so that someone else we don't have to worry about how it gets done. We just want it to be done in the ways that we've directed, right? And then there are certain mindsets. So there's quite a few mindsets, but I've given you a few of what's the difference between being at 6 figures and 7 figures. And to be clear, there's nothing wrong with being at 6 figures. I'm talking about people like me who have a growth mindset, right? They just want to keep growing and they recognize that money and business are just tools to facilitate growth. They're more interested in the person that they're becoming on the journey as opposed to the tangible results. Those are just markers to almost show, oh yeah, I crossed the finish line, right? And here's my gold medal sort of thing. It's not because those results matter, because what was a big deal for me, say 10 years ago, is something I can do in a day now. But at the time, it was a big deal for sure, and I needed to celebrate that. And as it is now, I've got things that seem like a big deal that over time, of course, will feel like it's no biggie, right? And I know you get what I'm talking about. So there are a few things that I've got in store for you. One is we're activating prosperity codes next week. That is the challenge that I'm hosting. It's challenge season. So if you haven't claimed your seat yet, you're going to want to. These are brand new transmissions, and we're really going to help you elevate and hold your prosperity consciousness so you can allow more in and allow more in without apology. We have a lot of fun. It's really deep stuff. People always get crazy results. And so if you're wanting to join us, then I'll put a link in the comments so that you can join us. The second thing is I have 2 more spaces available for a $1 million business audit. So I'll go way deeper into your business to see what's going on compared to what I shared today. That is for 6-figure earners and higher, for people that are really serious about taking their business to the next level, not because it's about the money, but because the money is a reflection of who they're here to help and evidence of how many people that they're helping, right? And we know we have a leadership deficit on this planet. So anyone that's willing to rise and be the lighthouse and really be committed to helping a lot of people, I'm committed to helping you. So if you're interested in that, just type audit in the comments and I'll circle back around and we'll have a little bit of a chat in Messenger to see how we can set up a call to really go deeper into your audit. So my friends, I hope this was helpful. Let me know. Be sure to share this with anyone that you think it would benefit. And I will see you next week. Have a great rest of your week. Bye for now.